friend. Blink.
Coming at you live from Studio One in the bell tower at Holy Flame Castle. Escalon Online. Daily recap. Pot.
All right, so are you ready to dive into this Escalon Online log?
Absolutely. It's not every day we get such a raw look at magic training.
It's like we're apprentices ourselves, right?
Right.
Trying to decipher these logs.
Exactly. And this one's fascinating, especially with the moral questions it brings up.
Yeah, talk about jumping into the deep end. Fenja's barely started, and they're already discussing zapping goblins.
Well, it sounds like Aurion, her mentor, believes in practical experience.
If you can call zapping goblins practical.
Yeah.
But I guess that's how magic works in this world.
It seems that way, and it makes you think, what does that say about their society?
Right. Like if this is just basic training, what other ethical lines do they have to navigate?
It's a good question, and the setting doesn't exactly ease the tension. Training beside a mother crystal of destruction.
That's just asking for trouble, right?
Yeah.
What do the logs say? It creates a high mana environment.
Yeah, potentially making certain types of magic even easier to cast. So, talk about a moral minefield.
So how does magic even work in this world? They use these splitters.
It seems like each splitter is attuned to a specific spell, kind of like a focus.
Okay, and Fenja's using a pastel blue one for a lightning spell, right?
Exactly, but it's not as simple as that. They also need something called Kratos.
Kratos. Sounds intense.
Basically, it's their willpower, their belief in the spell. Imagine having to mentally force the magic into being.
So it's not just about waving a wand and muttering a few words.
Not at all. It takes a lot of mental focus and energy. The log mentioned it cost her 70 silver coins worth of mana just for that one spell.
Wow, 70 silver coins. That's not cheap.
Definitely not. It tells us that magic has a real cost. It's a resource they have to manage carefully.
Which begs the question, why a goblin? Why not practice on something, well, less alive?
I think that's where Elrion's whole philosophy comes in, this preferens utilitarismus.
Yeah, he threw that word around a lot. It's basically like their version of utilitarianism, right?
Yeah.
The greatest good for the greatest number of people.
Kind of, but Aurion emphasized how subjective it can be. Different societies have different ideas about what's good.
Okay, I'm listening.
He gave the example of slavery, how it was accepted in Verant but considered abhorrent in Murtana.
So morality is relative, at least in their world.
And especially when you're talking about magic, it's like having a weapon with no clear right or wrong way to use it.
Which makes Fenja's interest in healing magic all the more interesting, don't you think?
Absolutely. It really highlights the contrast between them. Aurion seems almost resigned to the destructive side of things.
Yeah, like he's seen too much. Well, Fenja still has that spark of idealism.
And her asking about healing magic so early on definitely tells us something about her character.
It makes you wonder if Aurion even wants to teach her that kind of magic.
Right. It's like he's trying to prepare her for a world where good and bad are constantly shifting.
Or maybe he's trying to discourage her, warn her about the burdens that come with being a magus.
It's hard to tell. His mood seems to change throughout the log. One minute he's excited about magical theory, the next he's making these cryptic comments about responsibility.
Well, whatever his reasons, he definitely has a way of making magic seem both fascinating and terrifying at the same time.
And that's just the beginning. Remember he mentioned something called synergy? That's where things get really interesting.
Synergy, right. Like he dropped that word and I was like, wait, what was that?
It's like he opened a door to a whole other level of magic and then just shut it again.
So frustrating. Especially since it sounds like this synergy thing is where it all gets really, really interesting.
And let's be honest, potentially dangerous too, right?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if basic spellcasting already has us debating goblin ethics.
Exactly. Imagine what someone could do with synergy if they weren't too concerned about, well, consequences.
Okay, but before we spiral into a what-if doomsday scenario, what do we actually know about synergy from the logs?
Right, because he didn't exactly give us a user manual, did he?
Not exactly. More like a cryptic hint and a come back later when you're ready.
Exactly, but from what I gathered, it's about manipulating mana in ways we haven't even seen yet.
Combining different spell effects.
Yes. And he even mentioned something about, like, crafting personalized catalytic filter.
Personalized, so it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of magic.
Seems not. It's like each magus develops their own unique style with these filters.
Okay, see, now that's just cool. Like, imagine the possibilities.
Right, and the potential for things to go very right or very wrong.
It's what I'm saying. It's like we're not just talking about learning spells anymore, but about, like, crafting a magical identity.
Exactly. Your filter, your style, your choices, it all influences how the magic manifests.
Man, and here I thought choosing between a fire spell or an ice spell was a big decision.
Right. This is next level. And it makes you think, what kind of filter would Aurion have?
With his personality, it's got to be something with a dark sense of humor, right?
Maybe. But remember his comment about the burden of being a magus? It makes me think his filter might reflect that struggle, that internal tension he seems to carry.
You know, that's a really good point. It's like, even with all his knowledge and experience, he still wrestles with the consequences.
And that's what makes this whole thing so fascinating, isn't it? It's not just about spells and power, but about the choices we make with that power.
And the responsibility that comes with it. Which brings us back to Fenja. She's gung-ho about healing magic, but...
But what if synergy makes that path a lot more complicated?
Right, like, what if healing magic with synergy requires tapping into some seriously dark places?
Or what if it starts to blur the line between healing and, I don't know, manipulation?
Those are some heavy questions, especially for someone just starting out.
It's like Aurion is saying, welcome to Magic, kid. Hope you're ready for a moral crisis.
Yeah, I'm starting to think that maybe Aurion's cryptic warnings aren't him being mean, but more like...
Trying to prepare her.
Exactly. Like, he's seen what unchecked power can do, and maybe he doesn't want Fenja to make the same mistakes.
It's possible, but it's also possible he just enjoys being cryptic and a little intimidating.
True. He does seem to have a flair for the dramatic.
For Escalon's most dedicated mages, the ones who aren't just casting spells, but like crafting backstories and, you know, obsessing over lore, think of it like the difference between just watching a fantasy show and actually like writing fan fiction about it. You know, you're invested.
Yeah, a perfect analogy. What we uncover in these logs is that the order has this whole social structure, ranks, rivalries, the works.
Yeah.
It's a microcosm of human behavior, all playing out in this digital space.
And as any, you know, good gamer knows, where there's structure, there's often exams.
Right.
But not your average pop quiz. This one's got serious you shall not pass energy.
That's what makes this deep dive so compelling. It starts off deceptively normal. The Archmage, Vorn, is essentially the big cheese of the order, is acting, well, off. Uncharacteristically generous, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Vorn's usually about as welcoming as a dungeon boss. But in these logs, he's showering these students with this surprise breakfast feast. Like, we're talking meticulously described platters of food, not the usual, like, digital gruel.
Right.
Even mentions everyone's favorite dishes. It's enough to make anyone suspicious.
Precisely. And that's what's so relatable about our central figure in all of this. Aurora. She's a newer member of the Order.
Yeah.
And she sees right through Vorn's act. It's like when your boss is suddenly being super nice and you just know they're about to drop a huge project on you.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that universal feeling of, okay, what's the catch?
Exactly.
And as we'll see, Aurora's instincts are dead on.
Because what comes next is the true source of tension. Vorn springs a surprise written exam on the entire Order.
Oh yeah, talk about pressure.
Yeah.
And to make matters worse, two other members, Fenja and Bregor, who've clearly already been through this ringer, are practically vibrating with anxiety.
You can almost feel the tension through the logs. They're trying to subtly help Aurora, dropping hints about past exams. But it's clear this test is no joke. It speaks to that shared experience many of us have, that bonding over a common fear, even in a digital world.
Except in this case, the fear is like failing a magic exam. It sounds a little silly when you say it out loud.
Right.
But the way Vorn's talking, the stakes seem way higher than just like bragging rights. He actually uses the word deadly when describing what happens when magic goes wrong in the real world.
And that's where things start to get really interesting. Because Vorn isn't just testing their knowledge of spells. He's evaluating their understanding of the weight those spells carry.
Okay, I see where you're going with this. He's putting them through the emotional ringer, too. Just like a real mage would face in a life or death situation.
Exactly. And this is where Aurora's anxiety really takes center stage. Imagine, you're thrown into this pressure cooker environment. Everyone's freaking out. And you're still trying to find your footing in this community.
And then the Archmage drops a bombshell exam on you. No pressure, right? Poor Aurora. I mean, you can practically feel the, weight of these expectations crushing her in these logs.
Yeah.
She's struggling to recall answers. She's on the verge of tears. And you really get the sense that this isn't just about, passing a test. It's about proving herself worthy of belonging in this community.
Absolutely. And then that's where this whole scenario transcends the typical online gaming experience, right?
Yeah.
Because haven't we all been there in our own ways? That feeling of being the newbie, desperate to prove, you're good enough, smart enough to fit in. It's incredibly relatable, even if it's playing out in a world of, magic and monsters.
So true. And this is where we see the real, human heart of this community shine through. Because in the middle of all this exam stress, Fenja, who, remember, is supposed to be Aurora's competition, actually pauses to comfort her.
Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful example of how empathy can arise even in the most unexpected places. Here you have this pressure cooker environment. Vorn's breathing down everyone's necks, and yet Fenja takes the time to offer genuine support to another player. It speaks volumes about, the power of shared experience,
Right.
of recognizing a kindred spirit in the digital trenches, wouldn't you say?
100%. It really shows that these online spaces can foster genuine connection, camaraderie, even when the stakes seem, high.
Yeah. And let's not forget, all of this is happening under Vorn's watchful eye. He's observing their every move, even taking a bite of the apple Aurora offered him earlier.
Always watching that one. But here's the thing that's really got me hooked. The episode ends before those exam results are revealed. Talk about a cliffhanger.
Right. It leaves you hanging on, wondering what will happen to Aurora, to everyone.
Exactly. Will she pass? And if she does, what does that even mean in this world Vorn's created? We know he takes practical magic seriously, but how far is he willing to go?
That's the million gold piece question, isn't it? Did Vorn create this intense scenario as a way to teach a valuable lesson about the weight of wielding magic? Or is there something more at play here?
Okay, you're going to think I'm reading too much into this, but what if this whole exam is less about testing their, magical knowledge and more about testing their character?
That's an intriguing thought. Maybe he's looking for a certain kind of mage one who relies not just on power, but on compassion and empathy.
Right. Maybe those who fail the exam aren't cut out for the order, not because they're not magically skilled, but because they lack that, crucial human element.
And that brings us back to your earlier point about these online communities reflecting our own realities. Because isn't that a quality we often value in the real world as well? The ability to not just excel in our chosen fields, but to also navigate those fields with empathy and understanding.
100%. And suddenly, this seemingly simple story about a magic exam takes on a whole new level of depth. It's like Vorn's created this microcosm of the real world, right? Where your skills matter, sure, but how you treat others, how you handle pressure. That's what really counts. But here's where this deep dive gets, even more intriguing. While all this exam drama is going down, there are other stories, unfolding in the background of these logs. It's like we're getting a glimpse into the wider tapestry of this community.
Yes, you're talking about those side conversations, those whispers of, discontent and rivalry. Adds another layer of complexity to this world.
Exactly. Remember Drago. He's trying to get help for an injured player, but keeps getting, brushed off by the higher-ups in the order. It makes you wonder, are they really all about compassion and empathy, or does that only extend to those who, pass their tests?
It highlights the inherent tension that exists within any hierarchical structure, even one built around a shared love for magic. You have individuals like Drago who are clearly compassionate and caring, butting up against the rigid rules and established power dynamics of the order.
It's that age-old struggle, the individual versus the institution, playing out in a digital world. And speaking of power dynamics, we can't forget about Mercer, the leader of the Order's military forces. Him and Vorn are having some kind of disagreement, and while we don't know the specifics, it sounds juicy.
It suggests a clash of ideologies, perhaps.
Oh.
Vorn, with his focus on the human element of magic, might be pushing for a more interventionist approach, while Mercer, bound by the neutrality of a military leader, might be advocating for caution.
Oh, that's a good point. It's like Vorn's trying to teach these new mages that magic is about more than just power, while Mercer's dealing with the very real consequences of that power on a larger scale.
Precisely. It adds a fascinating layer of nuance to the narrative, wouldn't you say? It's a reminder that even in a seemingly straightforward community like the Order, there are always multiple perspectives, conflicting agendas, competing priorities at play.
Totally. And just when you think we've explored all the layers of this, digital onion, we stumble upon some good old-fashioned interguild drama. Remember Fulkin, the playwright?
Ah, yes. His artistic sensibilities seem to have clashed with Fenja and Aurora's vision.
To put it mildly, seems like those collaborative theater projects didn't go so well. It's a hilarious reminder that even in a world of, magic and monsters, creative differences can lead to some very real-world drama.
Indeed. But it also serves as a counterpoint to that earlier display of camaraderie during the exam. It reinforces the idea that online communities, just like their real-world counterparts, are complex, multifaceted. They can be places of incredible support and connection, but also breeding grounds for, conflict and disagreement.
And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating, right? We started with what seemed like a simple exam in a fantasy world, and we've uncovered layers upon layers of social dynamics, ethical dilemmas, and those very human emotions that connect us all.
It's a testament to the power of online communities to both reflect and magnify the complexities of human nature. What might seem like escapism on the surface can reveal profound truths about how we interact with each other, navigate power structures, grapple with the challenges of belonging.
Absolutely. And for me, that's the biggest takeaway from this whole deep dive. It's not just about what happens in the game. It's about what it tells us about ourselves. Because whether we're casting spells in a digital world or navigating the, ups and downs of our everyday lives, the same fundamental truths hold true. We crave connection, we strive for belonging, and sometimes we find ourselves facing tests that challenge not just our skills, but our very character. And maybe, just maybe, those tests are what help us discover who we're truly meant to be.